Thanksgiving night. Nova set the table for two. Turkey carved, candles lit, everything perfect. Her husband smiled, kissed her cheek, and stepped away to take a call from an investor. But minutes later, the phone he left behind buzzed. Nova looked down. The screen glowed with 6 words that shattered her world. "Can't wait for our secret dinner." The message was signed with a red heart and a name, Vivian Stone. Her breath caught. The herbs still clung to the air, but inside her something froze. In the glass of the wine bottle, she saw herself, pregnant, abandoned, and still holding on to a man already gone. Outside, Manhattan gleamed like a promise. Inside, truth arrived like a blade. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "Happy Thanksgiving, Ethan," and reached for his phone. She wasn't going to call him. She was going to press forward. And when she did, everything, marriage, money, and one very public image, would come undone before dessert. Nova sat still. The hum of the city outside felt distant, like it belonged to someone else's life. Her reflection on the glass window stared back, pale skin, tired eyes, the curve of a 24-week belly under a silk dress. Her fingers touched it gently, as if reminding herself she was still here, still breathing, still real. She didn't reach for tissues. She didn't call anyone. The air smelled of cinnamon and loneliness. Ethan's words echoed from an hour ago. Got to run. The same excuse he used every time he didn't want to look at her. Her throat tightened, but no tears came. Tears were for women who still hoped. Nova whispered into the quiet room. "You think I'll never leave, don't you?" The question hung in the air, soft but heavy. For the first time, she didn't feel broken. She felt awake. Some endings begin quietly, like a breath before a storm. The phone screen glowed again. Nova opened the message thread. Each image felt like a cut made of light. Ethan, kissing Vivian Stone in a hotel lobby. Vivian's glossy nails against his jaw. A Tiffany box, silver and cold, engraved with VS. Then a note written in his own words. After IPO Phase 2, remove Nova from all holdings. She stared until the letters blurred. The betrayal wasn't just love, it was business. It was profit. He had turned their marriage into an investment strategy. The turkey on the table had gone cold. The candles bent into pools of wax. Nova scrolled higher, finding more proof. Messages, receipts, dates. Each one another brick in the wall of lies he built around her. She whispered, "You planned my erasure." The screen dimmed, but the truth stayed bright. Nova placed the phone beside her laptop. No screams, no plates thrown. Only the sound of keys clicking. She connected the iPhone, the screen flashing, syncing data. Her heart raced, but her hands were steady. Folders opened, files copied, names renamed. For years, she had designed other people's brands. Tonight, she was documenting her own liberation. Each screenshot was armor. Each backup, a weapon. Minutes passed. The room glowed blue from the laptop light. When it was done, she closed the lid slowly and smiled. A small, sharp smile that never reached her eyes. "Everything leaves a trace," she whispered. The silence around her no longer felt empty. It felt alive, charged with purpose. Outside the tall windows, Manhattan shimmered, a city dressed in diamonds and deceit. Inside the Chelsea skyloft, the marble counters gleamed. The air smelled of money and exhaustion. Every award, every photo, every designer vase whispered the same lie. Perfect life. Nova walked through the penthouse slowly. The walls were filled with Ethan's success stories, framed interviews, glossy magazine covers. She stopped before one headline. Ethan Cross, the visionary behind Crossline Systems. Her name wasn't mentioned. Not once. She realized she wasn't a wife. She was a brand extension, a curated accessory. All this beauty was built to reflect him and erase her. The city lights flickered across her face, turning her reflection into someone unfamiliar. Nova whispered, The brand lost its light the day I stopped believing in it. She turned off the last lamp, leaving only the skyline burning gold against the dark. Her phone buzzed again, a sharp vibration cutting through the silence. The screen lit up with a new message. Vivian Stone. "Did she buy your story? You're too good, baby." The words glowed bright against the dark, almost mocking. Nova read them twice, slow, letting every letter burn its way into her mind. Her lips curved. Not a smile, not quite. "Good enough to bury yourself," she whispered, her voice calm, measured, unshaken. The old Nova would have cried. The woman staring at the screen now only watched. She saved the message, then locked the phone. Every betrayal, every careless word, now belonged to her. Proof. Power. The turkey on the table had gone cold, the candles half melted. Outside, the city shimmered, pretending to be kind. Nova took a deep breath, steady and low. She was done begging for truth. Now she collected it. Every empire leaves a crack. Tonight, she found his. Nova opened her photo gallery. Tap, screenshot, tap again. Another. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of the clicks. Fast, precise, unstoppable. She saved voice memos, calendar notes, secret folders hidden under fake names. Her fingers trembled, but her mind was razor sharp. Fear had followed her for years, whispering that she was small. Tonight, she heard silence instead. It wasn't revenge she wanted. It was freedom. Proof was her currency, and she was finally rich. The glow from her laptop turned her face silver blue. In that light, she looked both fragile and unbreakable. She whispered, "No one gets to rewrite my story but me." Each file copied was another layer of armor. By the time the clock hit midnight, the fear was gone. She didn't know what came next, but she knew this: she would never be afraid again. Her contact list scrolled beneath her thumb until one name stopped her: Cyrus Hale. She hadn't spoken to him since her mother's funeral. His name alone carried the sound of safety. Nova hesitated, then pressed call. The ring lasted one beat before a steady, calm voice answered. "Nova. Tell me you're somewhere safe." "For now," she said quietly. "Good. Don't take anything with his name on it. Leave in 15 minutes. My driver will find you." The certainty in his tone wrapped around her like armor. She wanted to ask how he knew, but she didn't. Some people simply appear when the world falls apart. Her throat tightened. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "Just move." She ended the call and looked around the apartment one last time. Every inch screamed luxury, but it all felt borrowed. It was time to give it back. The city glimmered beneath rain clouds, every light a lie she once believed. Nova slid the hard drive into her purse, zipped her coat, and looked around. The penthouse smelled of perfume, dust, and endings. Her reflection on the window glass stared back. The same face, but different eyes. She whispered, "Goodbye." Not to Ethan, but to the woman she used to be. The elevator chimed softly. As the doors closed, her reflection split into two, one left behind, one stepping forward. Each floor she descended felt like a page turning, old chapters burning. When the doors opened to the lobby, the cold air met her like a warning and a promise. Outside, the driver waited. Inside, the life she knew was already gone. Leaving didn't make her weak. It made her free. Suite 2103 smelled faintly of jasmine and rain. A tray of tea steamed beside the bed, untouched. Nova sat near the window, staring at the city far below, lights blinking like false stars. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand. Ethan Cross calling. She watched the screen until the sound faded, but it buzzed again. This time, she answered. "Do you really think running makes you safe?" His voice was low, venom under silk. She listened, steady, then ended the call without a word. He didn't know yet. She wasn't running. She was rebuilding. Outside, thunder rolled over Manhattan. Inside, Nova smiled, small but certain. Peace wasn't silence. It was power reclaimed. She turned off the phone, let the rain speak instead, and finally closed her eyes. Morning light came thin through the Langham curtains. Nova woke to a single ping. She opened an email from Cyrus Hale. Attached were scanned papers and a note in her mother's handwriting. Whitman Trust. She read the lines 3 times. The Chelsea Skyloft, the deed, was in her name. Her breath caught. For years she had lived inside a life she assumed was shared. The title was not joint. The trust kept the property separate from marital claims. It had been arranged long before Ethan's promises and press photos. Nova sat very still, the city humming far below. The legal language felt like a gift she had never asked for but desperately needed. She touched the paper on the screen as if she could feel her mother's hand. Tears did not come. Instead, a quiet steadiness settled into her chest. She felt the floor under her feet in a way she hadn't in months. Outside, Manhattan moved like a machine. Inside, something shifted. She whispered, "Thank you," and folded the laptop closed. The world she had thought he owned had cracks she could use. Nova dialed the number Cyrus had included. The lawyer answered promptly, voice even and clear. "Ms. Bennett, the trust documentation is valid and current," he said. "The Skyloft remains under the Whitman Trust. It is protected from marital redistribution." Nova let the words land. She repeated them in her head. Protected. Not his to sell, not his to leverage. She asked a few calm questions about timelines and filings. The lawyer explained the process in plain terms. Each answer shortened the distance between fear and strategy. When the call ended, she sat by the window with a paper cup of cold tea. The skyline looked different. The title was more than ownership. It was leverage. It was a way out. For the first time since Thanksgiving, she plotted instead of panicked. She pictured her child in a room that was hers to decide upon. She pictured waking up without needing permission. The realization did not erase the hurt, but it changed the shape of it. Where there had been helplessness, there was now a plan. That evening, Cyrus met Nova in the hotel lounge. He wore a plain coat and a steady expression. He did not demand thanks. He did not make speeches. He handed her a small envelope with a card from her mother tucked inside. "She wanted you to have choices," he said. Nova felt the card tremble in her hand. Cyrus spoke quietly about the trust and about promises he had made years ago. He explained how her mother had asked him to be the one to step in if needed. He said it without flourish. The weight of that promise settled around Nova like armor. She had thought she was alone. She had not been. Cyrus did not speak of revenge. He offered practical routes, names, and a voice that would not be swayed by headlines. At one point, he simply sat and listened while she told him things she had not told anyone. The telling itself felt like a step forward. When they rose to leave, Cyrus said, "We will keep this off the record until you choose otherwise." Nova nodded. For the first time that week, she allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Cyrus called an off-market broker that night. He spoke in clipped sentences and used no names. Nova listened as he laid out a plan. The Skyloft would be sold quietly. Proceeds would move into a trust account her mother had anticipated. The transfer would be structured to avoid scrutiny. Nova asked precise questions. How soon could funds clear? What protections did she have against a freeze? Cyrus answered each one methodically. He described contingencies and legal shields. Nova felt each answer build a scaffold beneath her. This was not spectacle. It was logistics. It was survival executed with care. When Cyrus finished, she sat back and breathed. The idea of money moving to a secure place felt like reclaiming air. It was not about punishment. It was about giving herself and her child options. She signed the necessary papers the next morning. Each signature felt like reclaiming a sentence of her life. The plan was small and fierce. It was the first real move she had made that did not require Ethan's permission. Nova ate a cold croissant with a fork. She watched crumbs fall into a napkin and felt oddly at peace. He built an empire on my silence, she said. Her voice was steady. Cyrus looked at her and nodded. Then use the silence, he replied. The two of them sat in companionable quiet. Rain streaked down the hotel windows. Nova thought of her mother's handwriting and the trust that had been waiting like a seed. She thought of all the times she had swallowed questions to keep a smile on her face. She thought of the small, daily erasures that had become a life. Now she planned to reverse those erasures. Each screenshot, each saved memo, each signature on a sale was a small reclaiming. This was not spectacle. It was method. It was dignity. Cyrus waited until she had said what she needed to say. Then he stood and said, "When you want them to see it, we will show it. Until then, we keep your voice reserved." Nova folded her napkin and felt lighter. The work ahead would be precise and exhausting. She welcomed the labor. The phone rang just after midnight. Nova froze, watching the name flash on the screen. Ethan Cross. She hesitated, then answered. His voice came sharp, already raised. "That apartment is mine, Nova." Her hand tightened around the phone. "Wrong," she said evenly. "I checked the papers. It never was." For a moment, silence filled the line. Heavy, dangerous. She could almost hear his breathing, fast, uneven. "You think a few documents change what I built?" he hissed. "I think the truth already has," she replied. A sharp exhale. Then the line went dead. Nova stared at the black screen. The sound of the city outside was faint, like waves under glass. She realized her hands were trembling, but not from fear. It was adrenaline, old instincts burning out. He wasn't untouchable anymore. She put the phone down, the air thick with something electric and new. Defiance. The game had shifted, and this time she wasn't playing defense. The echo of his voice lingered, cruel and familiar. Nova pressed her palm to her stomach. The baby kicked softly, a pulse beneath her skin. "You won't know fear," she whispered. "Not like I did." Her reflection in the dark window stared back, tired eyes, pale skin, but alive. For years, she had bent her world around his control, shrinking to fit his expectations. Now she felt every fracture widening, releasing her. Her heart still raced, but she didn't mistake it for panic. It was power returning, cell by cell. The fear that once silenced her now sharpened her focus. She thought of her mother, of every woman who'd been told to endure. Maybe endurance wasn't strength. Maybe escape was. The city lights blurred like stars through tears she refused to shed. Nova whispered again, "You'll grow up knowing peace, not apology." Outside, thunder rolled across Manhattan, low and steady, the sound of change arriving. Morning came with an email from Cyrus. The subject line read, "Contacts ready." Inside was a list of names, former employees of Crossline Systems, all dismissed after questioning Ethan's ethics. "They'll testify," his message read. Nova scanned each name slowly. Engineers, analysts, one former CFO, dozens of silenced people, all waiting for someone to listen. She realized this wasn't just her story. It was a network of broken trust lines, all leading back to him. She typed a reply. "Find them legal protection. I'll handle the statements." Within minutes, Cyrus confirmed the arrangements. For the first time, Nova wasn't hiding in a hotel suite. She was organizing a campaign. Every conversation, every piece of evidence, every leak, all methodical, all deliberate. Her silence had once been Ethan's strongest weapon. Now, it was his enemy. By noon, the first message reached an investigative journalist. The war had begun, not with shouting, but with precision. That night, Nova stood before the bathroom mirror. The face looking back wasn't the one Ethan used to parade at galas. There were fine lines around her mouth now, new creases at the corners of her eyes, but her gaze was steady, fierce in its quiet. She touched her cheek, tracing the faint shadow where exhaustion lived, and saw something underneath it. Resolve. She whispered, "You're still here." Her reflection didn't flinch. This was not rebirth in flames. It was reconstruction. Slow, careful, deliberate. Every scar was a sentence in her story, one she was finally writing herself. She exhaled, long and steady, and felt the tension loosen across her shoulders. For the first time, she didn't wish to be seen as perfect. She wished to be seen as true. The woman in the mirror nodded back, calm and alive. Nova smiled faintly, and for once it reached her eyes. The next morning, her phone exploded with notifications. Breaking news. Crossline systems under investigation. PR Director Vivian Stone detained at JFK Airport. Nova's coffee grew cold as she read. The footage played silently. Vivian in handcuffs, eyes wide, lips trembling. Then came the second headline. Crossline stock drops 12% in a single day. She could picture Ethan pacing in his office, face flushed, tie loosened, trying to rewrite the narrative faster than it collapsed. The empire he built on image was crumbling under truth. Cyrus called moments later. "You've started something they can't contain." Nova didn't respond immediately. She watched snow begin to fall outside, soft flakes melting on the glass. "This isn't victory," she said finally. "It's exposure." "Exposure is how corruption dies," Cyrus replied. She ended the call and stood quietly, watching the city spin below. For the first time, the world was seeing Ethan Cross without the mask, and it was about time. That night, Nova sat by the window, the city's glow trembling across her glass of untouched wine. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost ignored it, then saw the preview. Ethan. "I have something on him. Be careful, Nova." Her pulse spiked. For a moment, the words blurred. On him? He could only mean Cyrus. Her fingers hovered over the screen. The message felt like a trap wrapped as concern. Still, doubt slid under her skin like ice. Was Ethan bluffing? Or was this another layer of truth waiting to break? She locked the phone and stood up, her reflection fractured in the dark window. Manhattan shimmered below. Indifferent, alive, full of secrets. The line between enemy and ally suddenly blurred. She whispered, "You don't get to control my fear anymore." But even as she said it, her heart kept pounding. She had won the first battle, but the war had just grown more complicated. The next morning, Cyrus arrived early, coat dusted with snow. He looked tired, older than the day before. "There's something you should know," he said quietly. Nova waited, her pulse still uneasy from the text. "I wasn't just your mother's advisor," he continued. "Years ago, I was a silent investor in Ethan's company. Before the IPO, he forged documents. He took my shares, erased my name, and left me with nothing." Nova blinked. "You knew him?" "Yes," Cyrus said, "and your mother knew too. She helped me bury the evidence. When she died, I promised her I'd protect you from him, and finish what she couldn't." The confession landed like a second betrayal wrapped in loyalty. "So this," she whispered, "wasn't just about me." "It was about both of you," he said. "I owe her my life. I'm only keeping my word." The silence between them wasn't cold. It was heavy with truth neither could escape. That afternoon, Cyrus handed Nova a sealed envelope. The paper was aged, the handwriting delicate but strong. "She left this for you," he said. Nova's hands trembled as she opened it. The scent of old ink rose faintly, almost like perfume. The letter was short, written in her mother's familiar loops. "My darling Nova, if you're reading this, it means the man you trusted has turned into the kind your father once was. You are stronger than both of them. Forgive what you can, and burn what you must." Her throat tightened. The words hit deeper than any threat or promise. It wasn't advice. It was permission. She folded the paper carefully, like something sacred. "I think she knew this moment would come," Nova said softly. "She did," Cyrus replied. "She always planned for you to finish the story she started." The room fell quiet. Only the hum of the city filled the space. Steady, endless, eternal. The next day, Cyrus returned with a new folder, his expression calm but purposeful. He placed it in front of her. "These are your shares. 15% of Crossline Systems, legally restored under the Whitman Trust." Nova froze. 15%? He nodded. Your mother invested in the original seed round. Ethan hid it under a shadow company. We recovered the records. Nova opened the folder. Her name, in clean print, sat above a single phrase. Voting rights retained. She looked up, disbelief melting into quiet fury. You're saying I can remove him, Cyrus finished. Completely. Nova leaned back, heart pounding. The woman who once begged for space now held the authority to take everything. It wasn't vengeance anymore. It was restoration. She whispered, Then let's make it official. Cyrus smiled faintly. Monday morning. Board meeting. Park Avenue. Nova closed the folder, her decision sealed like ink drying on fate. Snow fell thin over the city as Nova stepped out of the black car. Park Avenue gleamed under winter sunlight, cold and sharp. She walked through the glass doors of Crossline Systems. Reporters crowded the lobby, flashes scattering like lightning. In the elevator, she caught her reflection. The same woman Ethan once dismissed, now walking toward the seat he thought was permanent. The boardroom doors opened. Conversation stopped. Ethan stood at the far end, jaw tight, color draining from his face. Nova, he said, voice low, brittle. You shouldn't be here. She met his gaze without blinking. I own 15% of this company. I have every right. The chairwoman cleared her throat. Ms. Bennett, the floor is yours. Nova opened the folder, placing documents neatly on the table. These are the records of fraud, manipulation, and abuse of assets under Ethan Cross. Gasps rippled through the room. Ethan whispered, You'll regret this. She smiled, calm, precise. No, you will. The boardroom fell silent. The air felt heavy, charged with the weight of everything unsaid. Ethan stood rigid, eyes darting from face to face, searching for an ally. No one spoke. The screen behind Nova showed numbers, signatures, timelines, his lies documented in sharp detail. He tried to laugh, but the sound cracked halfway. You think this fixes anything? He asked. Nova gathered the papers, her movements calm, deliberate. She looked at him once, not with hate, but with something colder, clarity. I didn't come for revenge, she said. Her voice didn't rise, it anchored the room. I came to end this. No one moved. Even the air seemed to wait. Ethan's face drained of color. The words landed with the force of finality, a closing statement no lawyer could argue against. Nova turned toward the chairwoman and handed her the documents. For the record, she said softly, truth is enough. And with that, the story that had begun with a single message found its first true ending. The meeting ended in quiet chaos. Security entered the room with calm efficiency. Ethan's protest broke the stillness, sharp and hollow. You can't do this to me, he shouted, but the words carried no weight. His authority had already dissolved. Two guards moved forward. One gestured toward the door. Ethan looked around for someone to defend him, but the board members avoided his gaze. They were already adjusting to a world without him. Cameras waited in the lobby. The doors opened to a storm of flashes, reporters shouting questions he no longer had the power to dodge. Nova stood by the window, hands folded, watching the chaos only through its reflection. She didn't turn to see him go. The flash of bulbs painted the walls in bursts of white. She breathed out once, steady. The noise faded behind the glass. For the first time, silence didn't hurt. It healed. Weeks later, workers climbed scaffolding outside the Crossline headquarters. The cold metal letters were unscrewed one by one. Crossline Systems. Nova watched from across the street as the final piece fell, the sound echoing faintly. The new logo gleamed under winter light. Bennett Innovations. Her mother's name, her legacy, finally above the door where Deceit once stood. Inside, employees paused to take photos, whispers filling the halls. Nova walked through the lobby slowly. Every step felt like reclaiming ground she had once walked in fear. She didn't need applause. The simple act of standing there was enough. A reporter called her name from the doorway. Ms. Bennett, what's next? Nova smiled slightly. Creation, she said. The cameras clicked, but she had already turned away. The world might see this as a victory. She saw it as balance restored. 2 months later, the ocean breathed softly against the shore outside her mother's old house. Nova sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, hands resting on the curve of her belly. The morning was quiet except for gulls and waves. Steam rose from her cup of tea, catching the first light. Her phone vibrated, a message from Cyrus. "Board approved your leave. Rest. You've earned it." She smiled, thumb tracing the words before setting the phone aside. Peace no longer felt foreign. It felt like home. She thought of everything that had burned away and what had remained. Truth, strength, her child's heartbeat steady beneath her hand. Outside, the tide reached closer, then pulled back, endless and forgiving. Nova closed her eyes and whispered, "We're safe now." The house creaked softly, as if agreeing. There are moments when silence tells the whole story. Nova Bennett once believed her life had ended the night that phone rang. But endings, she learned, are only disguised beginnings. Sometimes God lets everything break so you can see what was never real. She lost her husband, her illusion, her fear, and found herself. Strength didn't come in fury, but in patience, in rebuilding, in knowing she didn't need permission to live free. From that Thanksgiving night to this morning by the sea, Nova's journey had been one long act of remembering her worth. And as the light rose over the water, she whispered, "Thank you for leaving," because his absence had given her everything she truly needed. If this story reminded you that it's never too late to begin again, share it. Someone out there is still waiting to find their strength in the silence. And if you believe in stories that remind women of their power, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next story that might speak to your own.